Hello everyone, I hope you watched the part 1 video of making the solid oak door, and in this video I'll try and go over the rest of the assembly process of the entire door, including all the jigs necessary to complete the assembly. Right now you see me cut a sheet of plywood right in half using a razor blade, and there's two reasons for that. One is the space in my garage not being adequate to turn around a material big like this, and the second, I wanted to save every bit of material, not wasted to the saw blade thickness. I can't emphasize enough the importance of the safety of your eyes while working on any power equipment. So we're gonna cut length of the plywood pieces just to rough dimensions, and then we're gonna glue them together. To glue the pieces together, I'm gonna use like a sandwich approach, and I'm gonna rely on the curvature of these 3/4 sheets of plywood to provide pressure at the center of the panels, and outskirts of the panels I'll be using the clamps to compress. I'm gonna clamp both door panels between the 3/4 plywood sheets at the same time. Needless to say that the 1/4-inch panel pieces should be glued with the face sides facing out. And while my sandwich is drying, I'm gonna need a jig to cut the panels to size. And this looks interesting. I will use the pieces that I will cut from this 3/4-inch oak as my guides for the jig plate I'm gonna make. I also cannot be held responsible for any damage to your hands or fingers while doing what I do. If in doubt, you wanna use all the available safety equipment on your table saws or whatever you're using. And of course, use it at your own risk. Over here I'm attaching the guide planks to the plywood, making sure that the staples don't stick out so that they don't scratch the surface of my workpieces. Next, we're gonna make our first cut in this plate and attach a piece of perfectly straight 2x4, in our case, perfectly perpendicular to the first cut that we just made. I know the term perfect or perfection should not be used or applied to what I'm doing or the conditions I'm doing it in. I'm always striving for perfection and get satisfactory results at times. To attach this board, we use glue and crown staples. And try not to go overly staple happy. Few hours later, it is time to look at our sandwich that we had. And if I understand anything in woodworking, I say it turned out pretty good. Having done all the calculations, we know our panels dimensions. So we're gonna trim our panels to the size using our jig. And for the crude, lame and flimsy jig that we have, it turned out not so bad as far as parts cutting to dimensions and parts being true and square. So that surprised me quite a bit. I'm cutting panels just a bit smaller than the channel opening will be in the door frame as it will be assembled. And now I'm just putting marks on the vertical pieces of the door where the horizontal pieces will be coming together. Next, I'm gonna use good old table saw to cut the channels for the panel in door pieces. And it's gonna take multiple runs of same pieces in different directions, as well as multiple saw fence adjustments to get the proper width of the channel. The panel fits pretty good and I'm satisfied with the result. Vertical pieces of the door get deeper channels due to the special design of the door. Next, we're gonna clamp our vertical pieces of the door into our newly made, especially for this project, horizontal slot boring machine. You can also call it a notcher or slotting machine. It doesn't change its purpose. And what we're gonna do, we're gonna drill slotted grooves for the tongues of the horizontal pieces of the door to come together, and we're gonna stop drilling at the marks that we put on those pieces. Now this little machine is such a joy to use. I'm so excited I got it done. It's just wonderful how it works. It does a surprisingly good job. Now ends, the upper end and the lower end of the vertical pieces, we're gonna stay from the end in about 3/4 of an inch and bore our slot to that mark. Now this I'm doing to ensure stronger construction of the door, and so that the horizontal pieces with the tongues stay in the vertical pieces with the grooves, and the ends don't just split open. After all the grooves are done in vertical pieces of the door, we're gonna start cutting tongues on the horizontal pieces of the door. For that, we're gonna use table saw and the jig that I made for it earlier. Next, and that was off camera when I made one more special jig for the table saw to ensure the perfect square of the vertical guide to be able to cut straight grooves in our horizontal pieces of the door. Just like that. A little cleanup and it'll be just fine. The upper and the lower end horizontal pieces will have their grooves notched at the end about 3/4 to allow it to fit into a shorter groove that we drilled on our machine back there. Next, we're gonna prepare our special door design template, which we're gonna use as a guide for the trimming blade with the bearing. Oops, measure twice, cut once, correct? But it's nothing a little glue and a small insert couldn't fix. We're gonna use jigsaw to cut our curved lines. MDF dust is such a nasty thing. You may want to use a dust mask when working with MDF. And this is our insert and the glue that we're gonna use to fix the template. It's gonna be just like new one. Next, some sanding of the rough edges of the template. This is the time you want to be precise while doing it and use all kinds of available aid to do a good job at this. Next, we're going to use this template to draw lines on the door pieces, and we're going to make a rough cut using the jigsaw. For trimming operation, we're gonna use a router blade, which is a 2-inch flush straight trimming blade. and we're gonna adjust the height of the blade so that it rolls on the template and run all the grooves of our design using this method. We're gonna sand the tongues of the horizontal pieces so that they fit in the grooves nicely. They shouldn't be too tight, but also not too sloppy. I think this is gonna do. It looks pretty good so far. Next, we're gonna test fit and put the entire door together without using any glue yet. The door looks just right, I think. Right before the final assembly, it is a good time to sand all these parts of the door that will not be easily accessible after the door assembled. And that includes all the inner edges of the panel opening, the upper and the lower panels, as well panels themselves. This is done to prevent scratches and damage to the panels after assembly trying to sand it, as well as uniform stain color coverage. I'm using 120 grit sandpaper for the final sanding procedure. Now, did I mention I made the door panels slightly smaller than the groove opening for the panels? It was done purposely to allow for natural expansion and contraction of the solid wood. I cut pieces of a hard foam so they help hold the panel in the door centered and eliminate any rattling. After all the spacers installed, it's time to assemble the door. I'm using wood glue and a brush to spread the glue evenly. I'm being careful to put glue only where I want it to be and not on the open areas of the door, because later it will be very hard to clean it and stain will not soak into the wood where there is a glue. It is freezing in the garage right now, and I will take the door inside to make sure that the glue dries properly and prevent any glue crystallization. In the next video, I will go over how to sand the door and apply stain and clear coat, so be on the lookout for that. If you saw anything interesting or perhaps learned something new, please give this video a thumbs up. Please also subscribe and share for more videos, and I will see you next time. Have a good day.